You will be much more likely to be successful on the flight review if you are comfortable and familiar with the performance criteria of this document.
This is critical. This is pass-fail. Do you think it's fair to expect that a candidate can do a figure eight?
Attend, ye gentle souls, and hearken close, of skyward dreams and trials arduous. Herein unfolds the tragedy profound, where rules and mortal deeds bind men to ground. Act 1, Ambition's First Flight. We see Lysander, an aspiring flight reviewer, contemplating his studies.
O'er pages steeped in TP 15395, must I pour deep, for safely doth contrive. To test my knowledge, this fair burden mine, yet deeper truths lie neath 15263's design.
Thus, Lysander seeks knowledge, doth eagerly strive, yet knows not fully what trials will arrive. Act 2, Knowledge's Gauntlet. We see the grand hall of the Aeronautical Guild with assembled elders. Come forth, good Lysander, speak now thy claims. What knowest thou of air laws binding frames?
Good masters, TP 15263 guides me true. I know the statutes, Canadian aviation rules, of airspace classifications, boundaries and claims, restricted zones, advisories, and their rightful names.
Speak thou now of human factors' weary plight. What risk might hinder pilots' prudent flight?
Fatigue, illusion, judgment lost, distraction dire. These human foibles quench the pilot's fire.
Yet deeper still, of weather, speak thou true?
Of meteorological wisdom, good elder, I accrue. Of pressure systems, clouds, and turbulent threat, icing and winds whose fury pilots fret.
What knowest thou of navigation's arcane art?
Compass bearings true and magnetic charts, longitude and latitude, celestial might. GPS mastery guides my faithful flight.
And aircraft systems, dost thou grasp them clear?
Sensors, motors, batteries, and links austere. Command and control loss, solutions to be wrought. When emergency descends, swift action must be sought.
Of radio telephony, can't thou speak all right?
I see how phonetics shape my words in flight. Proper calls, clearances, and frequencies true. Precision comms upholds safe skies anew.
Lysander answers swift with a confident breath, yet ambition oft leads men close to death. Act 3, The flight review commenceth. At a secluded airfield at dawn, Lysander addresses the candidates.
Fair pilots bold, prepare ye now to prove thy skills in flight, thy virtues to behoove. Pre-flight checks, propellers, systems clear. Battery states and signals strong appear.
The pilot responds, Prepared I am, craft ready, nerves composed. Transport Canada's checks thusly imposed. And thus begins the flight review's fateful stage, where knowledge faces test and winds engage. Act 4, Judgment beneath heaven's vault. Scene, the candidate performs flight maneuvers under observation.
His VLOS management doth please my sight, yet situational awareness fades from light. Procedures, emergencies he failed to state, flight boundaries forgotten, a woeful fate.
Oh, wretched oversight, mine error laid bare. In safety briefings I did not prepare.
Indeed, thy omission grave, thy training weak, for safe RPAS flights thou must mastery seek.
Lysander's heart grows heavy, burden great, for judgment passes decides each pilot's fate. Act 5, The Reviewer's Lament. Lysander reflects alone beneath twilight's embrace.
O heavy crown, reviewer's solemn call, decisions mine of climb or grievous fall. Yet if standards yield, if rules relent, lives and property to harm are swiftly sent. Thus, TP 15263, my beacon pure, guides my heart, my judgment ever sure. With knowledge sound, responsibility grave, only safe, skilled pilots shall skies brave.
Thus, Lysander stands, bound to duty's weight, yet wisdom heeds, strict judgment seals safe fate. Gentle listeners, remember well this tale. Ambition without wisdom doth oft fail. Yet, Heed Transport Canada's righteous lore. Safe skies, secure pilots, endure evermore. That certainly was one of the scripts of all time.
That was actually pretty good. So that was a cold read, by the way.
That was pretty good. I thought that was quite funny, actually.
Yeah. So that was injecting TP15395, which is the Flight Reviewer's Guide standard for Transport Canada. It is the only standard for how a flight review can be conducted and what the critical delivery elements are. I'm going to bring it up on screen because I forgot to grab it here this morning. But we're going to talk about, and this is unscripted now, of course, and this is just us talking. But I feel like we revisit this on a regular basis. We go through flight reviews and pain points. We've got a few videos out there like the top 10, top 5, top whatever flight review failure points. And it is a failure to prepare. It's a failure to just read this document. So actually, let's talk about the flight review process real quick. We're in Canada. To get a drone pilot certificate in Canada, if you want to fly near people, cities, controlled airspace, or over people, you have to have what's called an advanced pilot certificate.
If the drone's over 250 grams.
Yeah, and sorry, we're talking about what are called small drones in Canada, 250 grams and up. So that process is to pass the online test, which is $10, 50 questions, and
50 questions, 60 minutes, 80% pass.
Thank you. And it's not an easy test. You get a minute and a half basically to do it, each question, and you can do open book. You can do it from knowledge. There's obviously, we sell a study course that you can check out, the Advanced Pilot Bundle. It's great for this. Or you can just chat GPT it and roll the dice. But the reality is that chat GPT is not going to help you get through the flight review and be a competent drone pilot.
It's not going to help you get through the written exam either because it's just going to take too long.
It's questionable. We're going to experiment with that down the road. Stay tuned. We got to talk to transport and see how we talk about that, but we've had some interesting internal discussions about ChatGPT, and we'll see what happens there. Anyway, TP15395 describes the process. So once you've passed the online test to get your advanced online test done, you get issued a basic certificate. You can fly the drone right away. You can fly under basic privileges, but you can't do anything that's an advanced pilot certificate until you do the in-person flight review. So for example, my story, I did the advanced pilot online exam the day it went live back in 2019, but I didn't actually do my flight review until 2020 because I was out doing other stuff. I was busy flying helicopters and everything else, and didn't really, like, drones weren't an immediate thing on my horizon at that time. So,
and at the time you had a micro drone anyways.
Exactly, so it didn't matter. But I had a basic pilot certificate. I understood the laws, and it was perfect for what I needed. And because of my extensive aviation background, I went into the exam to see what it was like to start with, right? So anyway, when I finally did the review, this is one of the documents that I used to prepare for, and this was the framework for everything that I did to get ready for the review.
And this is the same in other parts of aviation. One of the things that I do with my students before they go for their private pilot test is you sit down with them for like an hour with the guide, and this is the equivalent of the flight test guide.
Yeah.
And one of the things you always tell your student is, if you are surprised by a question or exercise on the exam, it is your fault because everything was outlined explicitly in the guide.
Exactly. And then on commercial aviation, we do something called a pilot proficiency check. The flight test guide, the pilot proficiency check, is public knowledge. There is no secrets in aviation. There should be no secrets in aviation because then everything would be broken. Mm-hmm. But the point is, you go into this knowing exactly how it should go. It should not be a surprise. I shouldn't have to do a briefing at the start of the flight review if you are well prepared, because all I'm doing is, you know how this is going to go. I am confirming that this is what I'm doing it, the standard that I'm doing it to. And you tell me what questions I should be asking you.
Exactly. So when you arrive for your flight review, or did you have anything else to set up?
We were just basically, we've established that you have to do the flight review to finish the entire certification process.
So when you arrive to your flight review, broadly speaking, there are 3 parts to the flight review. There is a document review. Basically, you need to have a certain number, a certain list of documents to be eligible for the flight review. You need to bring ID, you need to bring your pilot certificate, you need to bring proof that you completed the written exam, you need to bring the certificate of registration for your aircraft, and and the reviewer will confirm that you have all of your checklists are regulatorily compliant for that flight.
Yeah. So I'm going to try not to pitch too much, but of course, in our advanced pilot course bundle, we also have the SOP guide module. So there's basically 4 modules in the bundle. There's the online learning component. There's a sample test component, which has a bunch of similar and simulated test questions for passing the exam. Once you've done that, then the expectation is you do the SOP guide bundle. And the SOP bundle will, it's 90125 and up through 27 is the
901.23 for normal and emergency, and then 901.27 for site surveys.
Yeah, so you have to have established procedures for your normal operations and then your emergency operations, and then also an established procedure for how you do a site survey, because a site survey is required for all small drone flights.
That's right. So that's part number 1. The second part is, some people call it like a flight planning portion. Some people call it a knowledge confirmation portion.
Yeah.
On a coastal flight review, you're going to need to bring in a mock site survey in an advanced location.
That's standard.
That's pretty standard.
That is standard.
It's
okay. So there, TP15395 describes the process under, I guess you could call it a staff instruction from transport. They have said that you have to have an advanced mock flight survey.
Yeah, unless you're doing it in an advanced environment,
because what was happening is, in early days, people were doing doing their flight review in a Class G environment, for example, and never talking about, well, what if I was in Edmonton, or what if I was in Toronto and I was over a school or over a building at an airport? Well, I live in the middle of nowhere. I'm never going to do that. Why would I need that? Well, that's the point of having your advanced.
Yeah, you have an advanced, so you can do it. So we need to make sure that you can do it.
Yeah.
So all of this, when you are looking at this guide, the place to look for is the performance criteria section. Mm-hmm. In the performance criteria section, it provides the performance criteria. Your flight reviewer is assessing you based on, for this one, pre-flight planning procedures, they're assessing you on 1 to 14. Mm-hmm. Now, the flight planning portion, the knowledge confirmation portion, this is all about your ability to provide a satisfactory site survey.
Yeah.
You'll be asked questions about the site survey. Either you're in an advanced environment and the reviewer will ask you, like, okay, what do we need to fly here? Or if you brought in a mock one, the reviewer will basically ask you to take you through the flight, take you through your flight planning process.
Well, and point 1 is one of the biggest ones, because 90127 there's A through H.
That's right.
I can't think of what the numbers. It's 9, 10.
Yeah, it's A through H. So it's everything: boundaries of the area operation, airspace and regulatory requirements for that airspace, et cetera, distance to bystanders, weather, everything. So when it says provide a satisfactory site survey,
8.
Provide a satisfactory site survey in an advanced environment, we're expecting a site survey that is regulatorily compliant. Now, this doesn't have to, if you're new to drone operations and you haven't flown advanced operations or complex operations like this before, we're not expecting it to be like the most perfect operation. We're expecting something that is regulatorily compliant.
Yeah.
If
minimum standard to the framework.
That's right. If there's issues with if we gave you like a scenario that was like, okay, take photos of this, and you took off really far away from the thing you have to take photos of and you're going to burn half your battery to get there, that's not necessarily going to make you fail the flight review. We might say this is not the best spot to do the takeoff and landing, but that is still regulatorily compliant. So don't worry too much about the ops side. What we are really looking for is that it is satisfactory as per the regulations.
Clearly briefing the reviewer or any other flight crew or visual observers of any duties they are to perform or the information relevant to the flight. Well, that's a huge balloon topic, right? So there is a lot to unpack here, and just to understand, well, if I'm going to be asked to clearly brief someone on it, I sure as heck need to know what kind of airspace I'm in, which is also part of the site survey process. And then what are the potential what ifs that are relevant to my operation, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, the flight review is a decision whether or not the candidate is going to be safe and compliant to fly in an advanced environment. So it becomes based on all of these different performance criteria. And actually, as I say it, as I scroll down here, There is an aim and a description for some of these, right? So
There's an aim and description for all of them. So the aim
Exactly.
here is to determine that the candidate can effectively and efficiently plan and prepare for an RPAS flight.
which is one of 6 of the pass-fail criteria.
That's right. And it is pass-fail. So if,
What that means is the way that the flight review goes through, since we're kind of talking through the process, it's a linear process. A flight review is unique in that you have to pass the entirety of the flight review in one go. You can't do a partial or a redo or a partial performance redo. So if you fail on the flight portion, you have to redo the entirety of it at a minimum of 24 hours,
That's right.
cooldown period to the next attempt. So,
and you probably want more than 24 hours if you were unsuccessful.
yeah, well, and honestly, in your debrief, your reviewer is going to focus on what you did well, what doesn't meet the standard, and then also tell you, look, if you just fix this or just fix that, this is what you need to work on.
Yes, and that we'll maybe circle back on that at the end.
Yeah,
there.
sure.
It's kind of funny because the thing that is interesting to me is there's 6 performance criteria. 2 of them I would consider ground items, and the 2 ground items take
The most time.
the most time.
Yeah.
On my flight, and I mean that's not necessarily true on my flight reviews. If the candidate is prepared, then the ground portion's about 20 minutes and the flight portion's about 20 minutes.
Well, and to clarify, so we have a script. All of our flight reviewers have that script in hand, essentially, when they're doing the review. Everyone delivers a flight review the same in our organization. And in theory, every organization that does flight reviews in Canada should be the same because we're all following this TP 15395.
Yes, the reason why we have this document is to make so if I fly to Edmonton and buy a flight review from a different company, that is going to be
Exactly. And of course, there's personality differences and there's delivery differences and there's going to be interpretation differences.
Even Ian and I, we've sat in each other's flight reviews, and ours are a little bit, because of our personalities, ours are a little bit different.
I like to talk a lot.
He does.
And I don't know when to shut up. So I make our reviews longer than they need to be, but I also, it's just the way I deliver. So
I like to keep them short.
Yeah.
Short and snappy.
this episode is brought to you by us, Coastal Drone Co. And today we've been talking about flight reviews. If you're interested in getting ready to do the advanced pilot flight review here in Canada, we offer a course. Yes, we do. It is called the Advanced Pilot Bundle. It is $599 Canadian, and it includes all the ground school and information and prep work you need to get ready for the advanced pilot online exam offered by Transport Canada. And then there's more. We also have an SOP guide that gets you ready for the standard operating procedures for normal, emergency, and the site survey process. So you'll have all the document and paperwork that you need to do drone flights in Canada, regardless of advanced or basic operations. And then finally, it also prepays for the in-person flight review, which is the final step in the process. We offer that across Canada. We've got flight reviewers pretty much in every province and territory in Canada, and we're usually able to book within the week or two at the most. So we've got lots of options out there. You can work with our professional pilots to also potentially get some in-person training for additional time and additional fees. But start with the Advanced Pilot Bundle. It is meant to get you ready for advanced operations using a small drone in Canada. Check it out. The link's in the description below, or you can go directly to coastaldrone.co or hit us up in chat in the comments. Ask questions if you got them. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, every other social media feed. We're out there at Coastal Drone Co., and we'll be happy to help you get ready. We also offer bulk discounts for organizations that want to train multiple pilots in either online groups, or we can also offer in-person groups starting at 5 to 6 people over multiple days. So give us a shout and we can talk about that more. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to the episode.
Then we move on to the emergency procedures. You need to be familiar with the emergency procedures of your drone.
This is critical. So this is pass fail. Well, it is all pass.
It's all
fail.
pass fail.
So if I'm going to weight a section of the 15395, that there are 6 emergency scenarios that are described in the CARS, Canadian Aviation Regulations, and they're also described in the the Transport Canada AIM, Aviation Information Manual. If you cannot essentially recite those from memory, that becomes a critical issue. It leads to a severe deficiency in knowledge is what I'm looking at when I see this.
And we're not talking about like the whole checklist from memory, or maybe
No,
you are, but
just-
like the
no.
first couple steps from
Well,
memory.
Yeah, and this goes back to, so in standard aviation, you have aviate, navigate, communicate, right? The engine fails. What do? You don't pull the manual out. You get the aircraft to a state where it will at least glide.
Yes, you pull the first thing you always do is carb heat hot, and 90% of the time that will fix the issue.
Or in a helicopter, you start auto rotation, right? So you at least get the helicopter to the point where you're not going to hit the ground like a lawn dart or an airplane like a lawn dart, and then you move forward. So I want to hear from you. You lose command and control link, for example. Let's say your screen goes staticky, and then boom, the screen goes black.
Yeah, so if you actually look at the guide, we can ask about any emergencies, but we have to ask about lost link and we have to ask about flyaway.
Exactly.
So in a lost link scenario, like what we're expecting is, if we describe a lost link scenario, well, first off, you have to recognize the lost link scenario.
Yeah, so we're not going to tell you it's a lost link.
No, we're going to describe it
and
to
we
you.
got to be, just so we're clear, we have to be careful because there is like the entirety of the flight review is a private and proprietary process between you and the candidate. So we can't disclose everything we talk about in this, but we can allude to this is prescribed in the manual, right?
Yes, it is prescribed in the manual that you need to respond to a lost link. So if we describe a lost link, you need to recognize and then say like, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And actually it says in here what to do for lost link, and it says what to do for flyaway. Like it actually says what you need to do.
We're not revealing any secrets here. Again,
no,
there should
we're
be
not.
no secrets in aviation.
We're not.
Yeah.
And then describe the method by which to inform Transport Canada or a government agency. Please review AIM RPA 3.2.37.
It's not 345?
3.2.37 is the
oh, sorry, I'm thinking of
is incident and accident procedure. It tells you what are incidents and accident, like the definition or what scenarios are considered incidents and accidents, and it tells you who to report to. So please review that before you come to the flight review.
I'm just going to say it. You should just review the entirety of the RPA section of the AIM.
That too.
It's only 30 pages.
It's 30 pages. It'll take you a night to review.
Yeah.
Takeoff procedure.
Or twice as long if you convert it to Shakespearean English.
Takeoff procedure, as long as you have a good takeoff checklist and follow that checklist, you will be successful. Manual flight procedure, depending on the reviewer, will give you different flight maneuvers to do. As long as you're able to really maintain positive control of the aircraft, you shouldn't have an issue.
This is probably the broadest variance that you're going to see across Canada, across companies and reviewers, is the interpretation of what flight performance should be and demonstration of skills. It is a hotly debated topic in the flight review industry. To the point where some people ask you to do like very precise, very specific maneuvers. Just go back to the 15395. What is the minimum standard? The ability to do a safe takeoff, landing, and
so maintain a stable airspeed, cruising altitude, and heading. Well, it's easy to do that if you're flying a DJI drone because they will maintain your airspeed and cruising altitude for you. Navigate by applying systematic navigation techniques. So if for example, pilotage or navigating via landmarks would be considered a systematic navigation technique.
Yep.
Orient the RPAS to the direction of flight, so just know where your nose is pointing because the stick control is relative to the nose. Navigate around an obstacle or a fixed point. Sometimes, depending on where you are, there might be a tree to navigate around. Sometimes you'll be given something like a simulated obstacle or something like that.
Or you might be given a flaming hoop.
Determine the position of aircraft with respect to distance and altitude, so the ability to judge distances.
Yeah, you have to be able to judge distance. That is a critical performance criteria.
Yes. Yeah, and apply an organized method that would verify the position of the aircraft. If you maintain visual line of sight, I would consider that.
That's a pretty good situation to be
in.
If you, in the flight performance criteria, I will typically expect a pilot to be able to take off and land safely without any help or without checking a manual, right? You need to be able to, at this point, I expect that you've been able to fly the drone successfully at least a couple times. I don't, again, you want to show up with a manual FPV, sure.
I was just about to say that we're not looking for extremely accurate manual FPV flight. If you bring your Air 3 and just plug around with it.
If you can fly a GPS drone to way the flight manual prescribes and the normal procedures that are in it, that is all that's required.
That's right.
Let's talk about what used to happen, I guess, because like things have evolved as technology has evolved. So if you have an old drone, you're going to make your life harder in the flight review.
In the past, if your drone had ADI mode, they often reviewers would ask you to fly in ADI mode.
Exactly. Did it quite a bit. Or fly the drone without any automated assistance tools.
Yeah, but if you've bought a drone in the last 3 years, you can't even disable the automated assistance tools.
So it's not easy, for example, in a Mavic 3, you wouldn't be able to put it into ADDI mode unless you modified the drone.
That's right.
You wrap it in tinfoil or something like that.
Its altitude hold is in perpetuity. The only time that it disables and goes into GPS mode is in like a low light scenario or a bad GPS scenario. So if we did all of our reviews in our underground parkade, then potentially.
Yeah.
But we don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, don't sweat it.
Yeah.
Realistically, I do you think it's fair, and this will be a good discussion that probably some of our flight reviewer friends will probably pop up on in the video and either message me directly, call me an idiot or whatever, but do you think it's fair to expect that a candidate can do a figure eight?
I think that a figure eight would be the most complex maneuver I would ask a candidate to do, and I would only ask them to do it if they displayed a total lack of confidence with the drone on a more simple maneuver.
Why would you jump to the complex maneuver in that case?
Because if someone looks like they know how to fly the drone, then I'm not going to ask them to do a figure eight.
Oh, okay. I see. Like you're turning it into a training moment.
Potentially, yeah.
Like that.
But I normally don't ask for a figure eight. I normally don't do that maneuver. I say complex. It's not a complex maneuver by like
no
the state of the industry, but it's not something that I normally request.
Well, the reality of it is these are flying tools,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the advanced pilot certificate is meant on the ability to operate a flying tool safely. Do you do a figure eight? Like that's more of an aerobatic thing, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't get asked to do aerobatics on a PPC or a flight test.
No.
So why would you be asked to do it?
Actually, on the fixed wing CPL flight test, you have to do one aerobatic maneuver.
Well, the spin. Okay.
You have to do an incipient spin.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right.
Okay.
Actually. Okay, lost link procedures. So as we talked about before, I said it tells you what you need to do. This is probably an item before. Well, this is an item on the ground, is that you have your return to home programmed correctly. If your drone has return to home, I know not every drone has that. Power setting and altitude for the lost link scenario. Of course, if it's a lost link, then that's sometimes challenging. Promptly recognize. Again, we're not going to say you have lost link with your controller. It might be more of a description. Show an ability to regain control. So if you do some sort of troubleshooting aspects, and then take appropriate course of action once link has been reestablished. So if you say, and then the link comes back, I'm going to land the drone, that would be satisfy that performance criteria.
So I'm going to harp back on point one in this subcategory as well, because point one seems to be the most weight. You need to know what systems are in place in your drone in order to understand what will happen if you turn off your transmitter or it loses link. Will the drone disarm and just fall to the ground? Will it return to home? How will it return to home? Will it just sit there and hover? Maybe it'll land. Every drone has different systems. Of course, DJI has a common system across them, and that's for you to know ahead of time. But if you don't understand how the systems on your drone work, that's kind of the same as not knowing what to do if your accelerator got stuck on your car. Right. Or like just basic understanding of what read the manual is all. Read the manual. That's all you got to do.
What would you do if your accelerator got stuck in your car?
Turn the ignition off.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That was my first thought. I'm still an N in BC. For those in BC, I still have an N.
On your car, I'd wait 10 minutes because then that'd be finally up at highway speed, and then I would turn the ignition off.
Okay.
Talking about your K truck. Or
and then
wait for the belt to snap.
On both of them. Okay, and then the flyaway procedure. This is a big one. It says explicitly what you have to do. Identify and record the present position, direction and altitude, estimated flight time with fuel, or estimated flight time available with the fuel on board, and you have to give it in minutes.
Yeah.
And then depending on where you're located, if the aircraft, in this simulated scenario, if the reviewer says your aircraft is heading towards controlled airspace, what are you going to do?
Yeah, or who are you going to call?
Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. This is a big one. It is like, because the flyaway is considered one of the most serious drone incidents, and their performance criteria is written explicitly. Like there's 2 steps to this one.
Ironically, we've talked about it on here before. I've had maybe 2 flyaways in reality. And in both situations, there was no call merited because of the location and the circumstances of the flight. But it is such an infrequent thing to happen. but it is
Well,
weighted so heavily
yeah,
in
but
the flight review because based on technology, right?
Yes.
Like 5 years ago, these things flew away all the time. Like
Yes.
I had a real major flyaway in the Philippines long before drone laws existed.
Mhm.
So
Well, in both fixed wing and helicopters, the
Mhm.
most serious emergency is considered an engine fire, and those things happen extremely rarely. Yeah, so if you're unable to recall these 3 steps, then
that's critical error.
that's a critical error.
And actually, at the bottom of the document is a
The definition of errors.
Yeah.
And then landing, same as the takeoff, follow your landing checklist, land the drone.
arrival clearances and instructions if the flight crew is conducting controlled arrival clearances. So this is kind of getting into beyond line of sight.
Well, I think they also probably copy and pasted some of this from the PPL flight test guide.
Okay. That's also very likely too.
They also talk about errors. So there's 3 different types of errors: minor errors, major errors, and critical errors. A critical error, this is a fail. A major error is not considered a fail, but is considered something that's like, okay, we really need to talk about this. But again, only critical error is a fail. So critical errors: non-compliance with the cars or non-adherent to a mandatory standard operating procedure, repeated impromptu or improper error management, or uncorrected or unrecognized threats. Repeated major errors, or the non-performance of elements prescribed in the performance criteria that are essential to achieving the aim of a flight review sequence. So remember, it said the aim every single time. So, for example, for the provide a satisfactory flight review, the aim of that section is execute an efficient flight plan. So if you come in with a flight plan or a site survey that doesn't include, say you forget the airspace, well, the aim is not met then. The aim of that is not met. That is considered a critical error.
Yeah.
And
There's important things. So there is an example, and there, and I wish the 15395 had more examples.
yeah, the thing that I like, the examples are good, but all of them are on the flight portion. None of them are on the ground.
Yeah. So what tools we have as reviewers and as candidates actually is you can always call transport.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any doubt, you can eliminate that doubt by contacting transport and saying, look, this is what I assess, because you can undo a pass or a fail. Well, you can't undo a pass, but you can always re-review a fail and then assess it as a pass.
And we've done it in the past. We've contacted transport when we're unsure
or debate
and gotten clarification from them.
Yeah.
And if you're unhappy with how a review was conducted, you're welcome to contact transport.
Oh, absolutely. It's the first thing I usually say in part of my opening brief is
it's the first thing it's the second thing I tell people if they've been unsuccessful.
I just skip pleasantries and go into, if you're unhappy with this review, there's a number to call. No, because it is a privilege to be a flight reviewer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just like an examiner, just like anything else. So you have to maintain that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and both Ian and I take it very seriously.
yeah. There is further guidance for us as reviewers that we actually follow as well in the evaluation process. There's actually quite a bit in evaluation error, and it goes into things like a really good one is the central tendency error, right? So, basically, the central tendency error is that it's indicated that most people tend to review someone and consider them average, right? The flight reviewer really feels that the performance of most candidates is not as good as it should be, and therefore they usually underscore candidates' good performance. So someone that's exceptional might be considered average, whereas someone that's poor may be considered really poor because of the central tendency, or they may get moved into, well, they're good enough. On the other hand, it also means that the flight reviewer is reluctant to cope with the possible emotional response of the candidate. So,
are you in the evaluation errors section?
Yeah. And it results in padding or inflated assessments of poor performance, right? Because we're all humans. We all want to see people exceed. No one wants to see someone fail.
No, but the thing is that we as reviewers, we're not the ones that pass or fail a candidate. It is the candidate's own preparation.
Exactly.
So when we're the reviewer, our job is to just sit there and say, okay, tell me about your operations. Tell me how you're going to do this operation. And then at the end, we either say, okay, this is a regulatorily compliant operation, and I'm confident that you will do safe flights, or you have no idea what you're doing, or you're almost there. You just need to clean up a couple things, come back tomorrow.
And ultimately, I guess, because just thinking about time here, to wrap this up, the point of this is when we have this central tendency, for example, and we don't want to fail someone, we have this framework, we have the script, we have transport that gives us guidance to provide us with the tools to accurately assess someone, whether they pass or fail, and meet the standard of TP 15293.
Now, if you are preparing for the flight review, I have one piece of advice for you, and it is to read this document. If you become familiar with this document, your chances of success will go up dramatically. You will be much more likely to be successful on the flight review if you are comfortable and familiar with the performance criteria of this document. And again, if you are surprised by something on the review, didn't know what to expect, or were surprised by a question, it is your fault because you did not prepare.
That's brutal.
This is aviation's brutal, man.
It's not a good way to end the episode.
Oh, I think it's a good way to end.
You're mean. That cackle doesn't help. Okay. So the point of it is you have to prepare. The tools we're laying out for you are freely available, where there's no secret sauce. There's no secrets in aviation, right? The point of this is TP15395. It's in the prep tools that we offer. It's there because we want to make sure people are aware of it, but you can go and get it right now. It's literally going to be in the description below. I will make sure the link is there for this, for the latest version of the AIM and the cars. And if you had all three of those and you spent 50, 60 hours going through everything ad nauseum without instruction, you're probably 90% of the way there to get through the flight review. The whole point of the course we sell, the whole point of the training that we do is to save you time and directly to the salient points that are relevant to advanced drone operations in Canada.
So prepare.
Yep. And check out our course. Or hit that like and subscribe button if you want to just watch podcasts and be entertained by the hijinks that we're up to right now.
I think we need to do more hijinks on the podcast. I think it needs more shenaniganery.
Yeah, this will be good. Obviously, everyone, thanks for joining us live here. But if you're after the fact watching this VOD on YouTube, please in the comments, right? It's not just a saying. I truly mean it. I read every comment, which is great because our audience is growing. But
I also read every comment.
Yes, and then text me them. And it's like, did you see this? Yes, I did. Did you respond to it? I will. So. But we do appreciate it. Good, bad, constructive feedback, praise, all that is important to us because if we don't know whether this content's working or not, then we're just going to continue doing whatever we want. And then the only way we're going to know is if our subscriber count goes up or down. So the comments are so much more valuable to us. The like and subscribe, all that stuff is great. It really is. But just chat with us.
Yeah.
And you can reach us through our website, coastaldrone.co. You can email us. You can call us.
info@coastaldrone.co is the email.
Yeah, we're always available Monday, Friday. We're in Pacific time, so we're around. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for enjoying this episode, hopefully. And if you find this content valuable, entertaining, or just something that's a train wreck, share it.
See ya.
See you later. Bye.